So we're talking a lot about Western values, and when I think of Western values, I think of Hollywood, because it's kind of like when you think of morality, you think of The Sopranos, because you can see what morality is by looking at the opposite. Christian Toto is an award-winning film critic, journalist. He's the founder of HollywoodandToto.com. If you don't go to HollywoodandToto.com and you are interested in movies at all, you're missing out. It is a really sound right-wing take on what's going on in the entertainment world, especially the Hollywood world. Christian also hosts the Right on Hollywood podcast, and he's got a book, Virtue Bombs, How Hollywood Got Woke and Lost Its Soul. It has a foreword by Andrew Klavan, but aside from that, it's actually a really good book. Virtue Bombs, How Hollywood Got Woke and Lost Its Soul. Christian, it's good to see you.
Good to be here. Thanks so much. I appreciate the kind words.
So when you write in your book that about the fact that Hollywood has just gone incredibly woke, and I saw for myself before I left, racial quotas in writers' rooms, people being fired for being white, people being forced to take on black writers onto their project, even though the black writers weren't going to write anything. And how is that getting worse, or is there any chance of that getting better?
I sense it's getting worse at the moment. I've talked to a few comedians who happen to be white and male, and they tell me that it used to be happening behind the scenes, but no one would talk about it directly. Now they talk about it directly. Like, it's gotten to that level. So I think that's a sign it's getting worse. There seems to be no pressure on it to get better, honestly. I think everyone in the industry is either scared, laying low, unable to kind of reach out and make some sort of progress. So I think for all those reasons, it's not getting better.
It's a strange thing, because the profits seem still to be coming into Hollywood. From what I can make out, they still seem to be making money with their bigger movies. And now that the theaters are opening up, I'm sure they'll release even bigger movies and make even more money. But at the same time, they've lost prestige. I mean, does anybody listen to what a Hollywood actor says anymore? Does anybody care what their politics are anymore? There must be. You think they'll get any sense that they've made themselves obsolete?
No, the second part of what you said is correct. But the first part is the one that kind of puzzles me, because, listen, I can't go behind the scenes. I can't crunch the numbers behind what's happening in Hollywood. But they seem to be having success because they keep doing the same thing. So until there is a kind of pain in the pocketbook and the wallet, I don't think there's any real change that's going to happen within the industry. Maybe X amount of projects fail, but then a Spider-Man sequel comes around and, everyone's flush with cash, so they're fine. And I don't think that the public at large is really aggressively tuning them out or going to alternate platforms for their entertainment. I think it's happening to a small degree, but I don't think that they're suffering. I don't want suffering in general, but from a fiscal point of view, I think they have to feel some sort of pinch before they say, wait a minute, what we're doing may not be working. I don't think we're there yet either.
One thing I've noticed that it may just be anecdotal, I can't say about the numbers, but every movie now has to have black characters. They cast black people playing as white people. They'll have somebody who's a daughter of the American Revolution and she'll be black. It just doesn't make any sense. There's no such thing as a married couple who's just two white people. There's got to be a black person on there. But one of the things I've noticed is when I go on, say, Netflix, and they show you what the 10 top things, or they show you what's trending on Netflix, it's never any of those woke pictures. It's always something that either is older and has kind of old, more realistic pairings of people, or it's something that is absolutely just like a white story. And I kind of wonder if behind the scenes, they're turning out these pictures like they turned out movies attacking the American military during the wars on terror, but nobody went to see them, but they kept turning them out because it gave them their virtue, but maybe people aren't watching them.
Yeah, it's interesting what's happening, because I think what you're seeing is sort of anecdotal, but also seems to be correct. We track a lot of movies that are doing poorly, a TV reboot that gets super woke and then collapses upon itself, doesn't get a second season. So I think there are many, many examples of that. But I don't know if the average person within the Hollywood ecosystem gets that message. And I wish they would read my book, even if they disagree with 90% of it, if they just get the message. And there are a lot of great YouTubers out there who are kind of geek friendly, but they love content. They love Hollywood. And if only if the powers that be would listen to them and say, hey, they're not just bashing us. They actually have good advice for how to kind of bring more eyeballs in, they would learn something and they'd get better attendance. So yeah, it's fascinating to see what's happening. And again, we haven't reached that stage of we just made the 18th anti-war movie. They've all flopped. We're going to course correct. We're not there.
Yeah. I mean, the title of your book, Virtue Bombs, is obviously a pun because I think I do think some of these things bomb, but because of their virtue signaling. On the other hand, we just had this thing with Joe Rogan, and I found this, I'm not sure what I make of this yet. I'm going to ask you about it because you follow these things so closely. Rogan gets attacked not for racism. He gets attacked for bringing on doctors who aren't entirely satisfied that vaccinations are a good thing. We now have learned that the CDC, we learned from the New York Times of all places, that the CDC has been withholding information about vaccines because they were afraid it would make it look like the vaccines don't work, which does make it look like the vaccines don't work. So Rogan gets attacked for that. When Spotify stands up for him, they go racial on him. Where are we at now?
It's sort of a lull in the storm. I don't think this is over by any stretch. I don't guarantee that Spotify is going to stand by Rogan. People say, oh, that huge contract. Spotify just offered $100 million for people of color to do podcasting and other. They're flush with cash, and they will lose cash if they have to, if they think that's the right move. So don't look at the fiscal issue. That's not the end result here. But he has got a target on his back. He will continue to have a target on his back. And if he says something untoward, if there's someone unveils some new old episode of Joe Rogan that puts him in a negative light, that's still a possibility. I don't think Joe himself, who seems like a genuinely nice fellow, I don't think he gets the forces aligned against him. I don't think he really truly understands the culture war right now. And I guess if you're in his ecosystem, you're podcasting, you're successful, you have a lot of friends who love you, you get a lot of attention, you get a lot of cash. He doesn't understand the stakes here. And just to give a quick example, is Howard Stern, if you look at his back catalog, and I listened to it for 30 years, you could cancel him for each day of the week of every installment. But they don't, because Howard Stern now aligns with the narrative. He's very pro-vaccine. He's very anti-Trump. He's very pro-government. He even said, blank your freedom. He's all on board. So the people who are in the cancel culture mob, they stand down. They don't want to go after him. They're going to go after Joe, and they're going to keep going after Joe. And he's got to realize he's in a street fight. And as tough as he is, I don't know if he realizes that.
It is a funny thing. I've only met Rogan once, but he seemed like a very nice fellow. And they use that because we're all sinful, we're all broken, and so they say, well, you use the N-word, and you look back on that and think, yeah, maybe I shouldn't have done that, as if that mattered to them. But it doesn't matter to them. What matters is dragging him out into the street and tearing him to pieces, and then eating the bits of his flesh. And once you realize that, your really only answer is, get stuffed. Basically, I mean, you have no choice but to say that. I know this because I've been saying it now for over 50 years. And Rogan, they play on your niceness essentially.
Yeah, they demand apologies and then they don't accept apologies.
Right.
And listen, if you look at almost any person, they've got flaws in their background. I think Joe Rogan was an incomplete soul for quite a while. He seemed aggressive. He seemed kind of meandering at times. Now he's married. Now he's kind of channeling a lot of his energy through the martial arts. He seems like a better human being. He's evolving. And that's a good thing. And by the way, when he was reciting the N-word, he wasn't calling anyone the N-word.
Right, of course. Yeah.
He was using it in a more clinical form. And that context is stripped away by the cancel culture mob. It's what they do. It's what they're good at. And it's so funny because then, Hunter Biden used the N-word in text multiple times. He's fine. He gets to sell his artwork for any price he wants. That's how you know it's all a shell game. That's how you know it's not real.
Right, and they're relentless. I mean, we lose our, Rush Limbaugh used to talk about the drive-by media. We lose our attention on Rogan, and we move on, but they will not move on. They'll keep coming after him again and again and again. Let's talk about the Oscars a little bit, because the Oscars seem to me to be the incarnation, the avatar of this phenomenon of lost prestige. Is anybody going to watch the Oscars at all this year?
I don't think so. There aren't many populist movies, so there's no reason to kind of rally around them. You've got three hosts that don't draw a crowd. If one of the key complaints is that half the country doesn't watch the show because they insult conservatives, and who do they hire? Wanda Sykes and Amy Schumer. It's a thumb in the eye. They don't care. Ultimately, in their deepest, darkest souls, they don't want the ratings to go up because they know if they wanted the ratings to go up, you have a call to Ricky Gervais tomorrow, and when he hangs up and you call Dave Chappelle, that's how you get the ratings up. I would actually watch that. Now, I have to watch it because it's my job, but I'm dreading it. I'm not looking forward to it. It used to be my favorite night of the year. Now it's one of my least favorite nights of the year. It is, and there are reasons why it's not as successful as it has been for cultural reasons, for reasons not even connected to not even their fault. Stars aren't as glamorous as they used to be. Stars are everywhere now. We're on social media. It's not special to see, a Jane Fonda now because we see her everywhere. So there's cultural reasons why it's not an event anymore. But a lot of this is self-inflicted, and they have no real interest in fixing that.
It really, first of all, they don't know who we are at all. I mean, they don't know who conservatives are at all. They never meet us.
Well, they don't like you, though.
Yeah, no, they don't. They want to say, they're Nazis, they're racist, they're all these things. It is one of the funniest things to watch former leftists come into the Daily Wire and meet people and say, like, everybody's so nice here, and it's true. Everybody really is nice here, even Shapiro, who likes to come across like he's not. He's really a lovely guy, and this is the funny thing, that they are so cut off from us that they really don't know who we are in the least. So much has happened to the movie business in the years since I've been in it or when I've been in it. They've lost the knack of making popular films that are also good movies, that are also deep and important movies. That used to be, and if you go way back into old movies like 1939, you're seeing some of the greatest movies ever made that also were the top box office pictures. That's not happening anymore. So the movies themselves, the industry itself has kind of gone south in a lot of ways. When they put Wanda Sykes does anybody like her? Even the left, do they like her?
She's a talented comedian.
Okay.
I don't begrudge her skills, but she's not a name in 2022.
Right.
She's someone who's been around for 10, 20 years. She's done a bunch of shows and movies. She's got some ability. But if you're looking to get the ratings up, you don't say, get me Sykes. I also think maybe there were dozens of people that turned down this invitation, for sure.
Yeah.
But I think what you're saying is so interesting because you think about movies like Moonlight and The Shape of Water. I never want to watch them again. And they're not bad movies per se. But you think about Oscar, the Best Picture, you want to see it again and again. You want to introduce your kids and grandchildren to the movie. There's a populism that's so lost in Hollywood. And I don't begrudge. I mean, people say, oh, these are artsy movies. And there's a place for artsy movies. They're wonderful. Right. I enjoy them. But even like the King's Speech, you look back, is sort of a rallying where it was Oscar worthy. It was sort of had the gravitas, but it was a beautiful story and it was uplifting. It was emotional. It really kind of rallied a lot of people. You didn't have to be in this demographic or that demographic to enjoy it. It just was a good movie. And I don't see many projects like that these days, honestly.
No, it's really true. Talking to Christian Toto, his site is called Hollywood and Toto. His book is Virtue Bombs and How Hollywood Got Woke and Lost Its Soul. I'm just about out of time, Christian, but I want to ask you one thing. The Daily Wire has gotten into making movies, and we've got one coming out, I think, next month, and one coming out in April, in May. We're bringing out movies. They're solid movies. I've heard the one with Gina Carano is terrific. I haven't seen it yet, but I hear it's great. Will anybody copy us? I mean, will anybody join this fight with us? Are we alone in this? Because it seems to me that we can't, it's wonderful what the Daily Wire is doing. I'm so thrilled and excited about it and so proud of it. But at the same time, we can't do it alone. I mean, this has got to be a movement. Do you think there's any chance of that?
I couldn't agree with everything you said anymore. I don't know. I think we're seeing things on a smaller scale. The Federalist just put out a documentary. I've heard other whispers about other organizations kind of getting into that space as well. But, the Daily Wire is really focused on this, is really primed to do something of substance. And I don't see something of that size or even lesser size right now. But boy, do we need it.
Yeah.
When I think about all the stories that are out there right now that aren't being told and will never be told, it is shocking. Fela McAleer is making My Son Hunter right now. There should be a dozen studios racing to make that movie because there's so much sex and addiction and tragedy and everything. It's almost a farce how great it would be to make that into a movie. But it took Felam's team, crowdfunding to make this happen. So, you've been banging the drum about the culture forever.
Yeah.
I think conservatives are getting the message, but there's the next step where maybe the big benefactors have to say, I'm going to write a big check to Breitbart or to, the Daily Caller and get them in the movie business as well. My only real hope here is that I think the Daily Wire will be successful, but that someone will look at that and say, hey, we could do that too.
Yeah.
So
I got to stop there. Christian Toto, Virtue Bombs, How Hollywood Got Woke and Lost Its Soul. Go get it. Go support him. Support him over at Hollywood and Toto. Christian, always good talking to you. Let's do it again soon.
Thanks so much.
If you want more Klavan-y goodness, subscribe and like, and also subscribe to The Andrew Klavan Show wherever you listen to podcasts.